All right, you guys. Today we are joined by the precious, beautiful, one of my favorites, Dr. Tanda Cook. She is a naturopathic doctor and the author of Food That Grows, which is just a beautiful, is it mostly a recipe book, Tanda? Is that kind of what it is? It is a beautiful book, you guys. It's a farm to table cookbook, and it's just reminds me so much of her and how she uses food as medicine. She is a Montana native, but recently ran away to Tennessee to live a more authentic life on the farm, which is just such a cool thing that she's doing. We're going to talk a little bit about the immune system. She's a wealth of knowledge, but with this pandemic going on, I wanted to bring her on and just have her talk a little bit about the immune system and some ways that she takes care of her immune system and kind of her favorite ways to go about boosting it. So Dr. Tanda, thank you so much for coming on the call. Tell us just a little bit about yourself, how you got into what you're doing, and how you ended up in Tennessee.
Oh my gosh. You said you want to keep this to 15 minutes. So I'm doing how fast I can do this. Yeah, so I am a naturopathic physician. I went to school at the National University of Natural Medicine, Portland, Oregon, and then ended up moving to Bozeman, where I really discovered my love for the farm. And I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, I was like, if you cut me open, farmer falls out. I love my physician brain. I love teaching. Doctor means teacher, and I take that very seriously. And those of you who know me, I'm like borderline addicted to teaching, because I think it's, really sad that I had to go to medical school and spend a lot of dollars on my brain to understand how our body works, how to keep it healthy. And so I really want to empower people with things that they can be doing every single day to add health. I mean, I'm really more about adding health and taking disease away. Like I always say, I'm not that powerful. I didn't go to sorcery school. I went to naturopathic medical school. So I want to teach people how their body works, what their body loves. We're built with this innate system to be in balance, to be in homeostasis or be homodynamic. And yet, why do we have disease? And why, when my patients come to me and they're 28 years old and they can't conceive, what's going on? That's not normal, right? And when people say, oh, I'm 45 and I'm exhausted, but that's normal, I say, no, it's actually not. I want you to feel better at 40, 40 than you did at 30. I want you to feel better at 50 than you did at 40. And I know that's possible because I've done it and I've seen my colleagues do it too. And what are we doing every single day to add health, to give the body the information that it needs to heal? And so then it was my own health journey that got me on this down the road. And those of you who have my book or know my story, I like to say I was blessed with an eating disorder at 17, which sent me down a really cool path, challenging, but very cool path to naturopathic medicine, and then ultimately to the earth, where I now farm. Because like I said, I know you and I were talking the other day, it's like we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, and Mother Earth represents our body very similarly, and our body represents Mother Earth very similarly. And so I want to know both, and I also want to teach from the ground up. And in my presentations, I tell people they don't need to go out and get a 20-acre farm in Tennessee, but I want to know. I want to know what it takes to raise both animals and plants, because if I'm going to teach it, I want to. The authenticity has a sound, and just like doubt has a sound, fear has a sound. I want to teach authentically about the earth, about food, about health, and how we can have all of it. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I love that so much about you, and you truly live that authentic. I know when you were here in Montana, just looking at these beautiful meals that would be, an hour before they were on your table, they were in your, I mean, it's incredible. She grows all of her own food. It's just really fun to watch someone live out their life so authentically. So let's jump into the immune system. Let's talk a little bit about what the immune system is, and then your favorite foods and supplements to help boost it.
Awesome. So the immune system, if I were going to go back to school, I would go back to school for a few things, but immunology would be one of them. I am fascinated by the immune system. We kind of like the gut microbiome, we are just scratching the surface. We're always learning something new about the immune system. So very sort of elementary, the immune system is the system that has cells that float around the body, and they bump into things and they ask these two questions. Are you me or are you not me? And if it's a me, they say, hi me, and then they roll on their merry way and they keep bumping into things. And if it's a not me, like a virus or a bacteria or a fungus or a parasite or food, then it will tag that thing. It alerts the rest of the immune system, kind of like a big megaphone, to alert that the immune system that that thing is foreign and to blow it up or kill it or dissolve it or apoptosis or whatever it is. Again, depending on the foreigner, that's the immune system, right? So the other analogy that I use, the immune system is incredibly complex, and it's like having a 9-car garage in your house. So in your 9-car garage or 5-car garage, you have different vehicles. You have your Mercedes Benz, you have your Chevy truck, you have your dump truck, you have a van, and you have your convertible. So you have this 5-car garage, you have those 5 vehicles, and depending on the job that you have to do that day, you'll pick the appropriate vehicle. Does that make sense? So then say if it's pouring rain, you're not gonna drive your convertible, you have to pick up 20 kids from a school, you're probably gonna drive your van. It's like, and then how you fuel those vehicles matters. And so your immune system is exactly the same way. So say you have these 5 different ways of reacting to the world, and they're called TH responses. So you have your TH1 response, which is your bacteria and viruses. That's how, if we are exposed to a bacteria or a virus, your TH1 response, garage door opens and your TH1 response gets out and helps fight that bacteria and virus. Then you have your TH2 response, that's allergies. Then you have your TH3 response, that's for food, because food is still foreign. And then you have your TH17 response, which is cancer, and then you have your TH22 response, which I can't remember off the top of my head. And then there's a drillion other of those THs, but I'm gonna pick on those 5 for right now. So the one we wanna concentrate on sort of on this call clearly is the TH1 response, because we're dealing with the bacteria and viruses. And so then how do you fuel that vehicle? How do you drive that response? One of my the things that kind of make me want to poke my earballs out is when people say boost the immune system. Now that's just it's a great term. I understand what people are saying, and yet it's misused. You don't always necessarily want to boost the immune system. You want to drive those certain responses. You want to get in one of those vehicles depending on the outside world, depending on what your body is dealing with. So you have that TH1 response, that Chevy truck, right? And what are you going to fill it with? What drives that TH1 response? Well, vitamin C drives that TH1 response. Vitamin D drives that TH1 response. Vitamin A, and then things like echinacea, elderberry, melissa. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Feverfew, which is melissa. Anyway, so you have these certain things that will help drive those responses. Then you have things like food that will help drive, rosmarinic acid. So rosemary is another one. And then you have the foods that will drive that TH1 response. Things like ginger, turmeric. Those are 2 off the top of my head. And so understanding, again, I understand that the whole boosting thing, it's rethink about it. Like, how can you support that certain response to help your body do its job? And vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, elderberry, feverfew, echinacea, all of those guys will help in all of the different phases of that response. So when you're exposed to the virus, so I'm going to pick on viruses just for the sake of what's happening in the world right now. So you're exposed to that virus. Well, what happens is inflammatory cytokines start to raise in the body, right? They're called in particular IL-1 and interleukin-1 and interleukin-6. And then TNF-alpha, tumor necrosis factor. So TNF-alpha, IL-6 and IL-1 all are inflammatory cytokines. You want that inflammation to be driven high, which is what echinacea does. It's what elderberry does. That's why when you get exposed to a virus and you have those first few symptoms of feeling terrible, you want to help drive that response, because that is the innate healing of the body. So those cytokines are driven high. That's IL-1 makes you feel exhausted. So when those cytokines go really high, you're like, wah, wah. Well, you on purpose, because your body wants to put you to bed, go to bed, sleep, right? And then interleukin 6 gets driven. That actually drives anxiety and catastrophizing. So that becomes kind of this vicious circle, because, you know, we drive IL-6, which makes us feel anxious and catastrophizes, which then drives IL-6, which makes us anxious and catastrophizing, which is why we'll get into some of the things that can help lower those. Yeah. So your body wants to drive those inflammatory cytokines, and then you have things like natural killer cells come in, Treg cells come in, and then that lowers that response, and then you go into the healing phase. So there's this like really cool patterning of that innate response that is sort of the whole cycle of what happens when you get exposed to something like a virus. So again, foods are, you know, ginger, turmeric, rosemary. Add that to salad dressing, stir fries, roasted vegetables. I mean, all of the brightly colored. The best multivitamin there is eating the rainbow, and Skittles don't count. You guys know what I mean? Like, eat all sorts of different colors of things. And I mean, you cannot go wrong with whole foods. But really, the brightly colored foods, and then supplements like C, D, A, astragalus, echinacea, elderberry, melissa are some of the greatest ones for helping that just naturally drive those responses. And the coolest thing about plants like echinacea, elderberry, melissa, astragalus is they have these things called nanoparticles, and they're adaptogens. So they like kind of dance with your immune system. They'll help drive things that are supposed to be driven. They'll lower things that are supposed to be lowered. That's what adaptogens do. They take hyper states down and they take hypo states up, and they really help your body do the job. And elderberry and echinacea have been getting a bad rap on the internet just because of the cytokine storm. I want to clear out. The one thing I will say about that is an herb, a plant, has never caused a cytokine storm. Ever. So, ever. And if you're not an immunologist and you're not a naturopath and you're not an herbalist, you know that. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of those humans in the world. So people just get all harebrained about it. So I just want to clear that up, that a plant has never caused a cytokine storm. But that's kind of overview of the immune system and then what we can do about it.
I love that so much. It's such a great explanation. So for you, when this whole pandemic occurred, did you do anything differently? Did you add kind of more to your regimen, or did you just, I've already taken care of it, I'm healthy, I'm good?
That is such an awesome question. The only thing I did was take 500 milligrams more of vitamin C.
So great.
I was already taking 1,000 milligrams a day. So now I'm up to 1,500, and I take 1,000 in the morning and 500 at night. And outside of that, I did not change a thing. And my routine is I take 5 different probiotics a day. I drink a kombucha or eat some sort of fermented food every day for the probiotics, which is our gut microbiome. I mean, that's a whole nother interview. But that supports the immune system in so many different ways. And then I do not eat processed food, period. I do not eat sugar, period. I eat lots of protein, lots of vegetables, lots of fat, and I take D, C, probiotics, digestive enzymes, magnesium, you know, I mean, so this whole gamut of stuff, but no, I didn't change anything. And my patients, I didn't change anything with them. That's the other thing, is they were all, you know, it was really kind of cool actually talking with them, because I know that they got hit with all of this going, do we need to change anything? And then them on their own went, we don't have to change anything. Like, we're already doing all the things that the media is telling us to do sort of in the more alternative functional medicine world. They were like, we're already doing all of that. It's like,
I love that too. And it's such a good kind of checkpoint. It's like, okay, are you healthy? Do you feel like if you were to contract the virus, you know, how would you do with it? And the virus is going to go away. Other things will come, but the only thing that we can really control is just, are we taking care of our bodies? Are we taking care of our immune systems? And that's what I love so much about, preventative medicine is it's like, this isn't something we just all of a sudden do and then it goes away and we start trashing our bodies again. It's something that we do all the time. And that's all we can control is just the vessel that is our body and taking care of it.
Yeah.
I love that. So Tanda, let's talk a little bit, there's the more obvious immune support, there's supplements, there's food, which I love your take on food as medicine, but let's jump into the connection between emotional health and the immune system. I know there's a lot of people out there that sort of take emotional health and think it is their work and their relationships and their financial stressors, all of that kind of stuff. But let's talk about kind of some of more the subconscious underlying stuff and how that affects our immune system.
Again, you want me to keep this to 15 minutes? One of the highlights here is, bottom line is, emotions play a role on so many things. Like I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was about, there was an interview with a naturopathic medical doctor who was working in the cancer world in a hospital in Chicago, and she was brought in to work in conjunction with the oncologist. That was really cool. And so they were talking about the impact of nutrition on cancer treatment. And she said, the problem with nutritional studies is that humans suck at reporting what they eat. So nutritional studies are very challenging to sort of believe. But she said, that being said, with all the nutritional studies that we have, it's really come back and come to our attention that food has a 30% impact on somebody's health with cancer. And I'm listening to this podcast and I'm walking and I'm like just loving all of this information. I almost fell to my knees because I was like, what am I doing? Here I am teaching about food and it's only 30% of health. And then she went on to say that the 70% is lifestyle. And what she meant by that, that's code for how you feel about your life and what you're doing every day. Yeah. 70%. Yeah. And so then we can get into the immunology of it. I just said that anxiety raises IL-6, which is an inflammatory cytokine. You guys don't need to know any of that other than anxiety increases inflammation in your body. Anxiety is, there's no studies done on this, but it's like, I would equate anxiety is with eating sugar. I mean, it's the similar impact of destruction. Yeah. Chronic inflammation causes disease, period. Where that inflammation is coming from is my job and your job in terms of how we then teach people to shift that. Yeah. Most of it, and people want to hyper focus on what they're eating and ignore the fact that they're unhappily married, or focus on what supplements they're taking and ignore the fact that they hate their job. Yeah. Focus on an air filter in their bedroom, ignoring the fact that they absolutely hate where they live. Yeah. Yeah. That has a way bigger impact because that increases inflammatory cytokines over and over and over and over again. And then you get exposed to a virus, your inflammatory cytokines are already high. Your immune system is completely imbalanced. Those are the people that I worry about, right? Yeah. And so a lot of my coaching with my patients, and what you and I have talked about a ton, is yes, it matters what you eat, and 30%. And yeah, the bigger game, yes, it matters what supplements you're on. Yes, it matters, keto diet versus vegetarians diets versus anti-inflammatory diets versus blah, blah, blah diets. Like, there's so many things out there, but how do you feel about your life? Yeah. And that, I honestly, over the past couple of years with some incidences that have happened in my personal life, I've seen the impact of that, and the impact of our thoughts, the impact that our thoughts create our words create our world. And so then I've taken my own personal experiences over the past 3 years and dumped them into my practice, and I bring them into my coaching. And I can't tell you how many of my patients come to me for weight loss. I'm going to pick on that one because it's huge. And I work mostly with women, and not because of my own thing, just because those are the humans that find me. And they come to me for weight loss, and then we do diet after diet after diet after diet, after food allergy tests, after hormone testing, after supplements, after all of the things. And then they lose their job, and they've hated this thing the whole time anyway, and they stress about losing it. And then once they realize that this is a gift, this is actually the thing that they wanted the entire time, up 3 months later, they're down 30 pounds. It happens every single time. Now, I am not telling any of the listeners to go divorce husbands, quit jobs, and up and move. And if that's what it's going to take, sometimes that's what it takes. And I think we so often hyper focus on the external, right? What foods are in our fridge? What supplements are in our cabinet? What medicines are we taking? And we ignore the things that are really driving stress, which can be, it always is relationship, finances, where you live, and what you're doing every day. So, and then the other thing, and again, that raising interleukin-6, that raising that inflammation in the body, that's more of the physiology behind it. And then the other cool thing about, well, I'll end there because I know we'll jump into sort of what to then do about it. But that's, again, in sort of the little nutshell of it matters. What our thoughts create our words create our world. And if it's working for you, keep doing it and keep thinking it and keep saying it. But if your world is not working for you, you got to shift this first.
Yeah, I love that. I just love that so much. And I want to regurgitate something she said. She said, our thoughts lead to feelings, and then those feelings can cause inflammation. They might be feelings of fear, anxiety, inadequacy, whatever it is. Our thoughts can create inflammation, and we have to be aware of that. And even more so than some foods and some, poor food choices. So it's just so important to know that you can be doing everything right. You can be eating a perfect diet, like she was saying, and you can be supplementing and doing all of those things. But if you're not living authentically, or you're not happy in a relationship, or maybe there's a deep, feeling of you're not enough, or whatever it is, if it's there and you haven't addressed it, you'll never be able to out supplement, out eat. You won't be able to outsmart those underlying feelings. So I love that you're working on that, Tanda. It's huge. And I feel like that's where a lot of, preventative medicine especially is going. It's because we're just realizing that it's a small food, and that's a very small part of really being well. So once we know about some of these things and we're recognizing, anxiety, stressors in our life, what are some things that we can do to, still support our immune system with those things going on? What can we do?
So this is my favorite part of all talks, because now this comes the juice, right? It's like, what can we actually do about this? How can we help not only the immune system, but the mind and the body and your environment? And I'm a huge fan of creating healthy routines for my patients, for everybody that I coach, and leaving people with a nugget of something that they can take into their life. So I'm going to throw a bunch of things at you, and I want you to pick one, because people get so overwhelmed with all the things that they're supposed to be doing every day, or not doing every day, or taking every day, or not taking every day, and eating, not eating, avoiding, blah, blah, blah. It can get incredibly overwhelming. And when people are overwhelmed, they get paralyzed. So take one thing. And ultimately, the following nature's laws is one of the tenets in naturopathic medicine. And I read that tenet as a 23-year-old, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. That sounds like cool enough, and like I'm curious enough to kill myself in medical school to find out what that is. Now, here's what that means. I want you to eat food. And when I say that, it's food that comes from the earth. It's whole foods. It's really not complicated. People make food unbelievably complicated. It's eating locally, eating seasonally, which means shop at the farmers markets, Google seasonal food in your area and follow that. And then, so eating food. I love how Michael Pollan says it. He says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants.
I love that.
And move your body. We're designed to move. We are made of pulleys and hinges and levers and things. Like I always tell my people, like, cows are designed to do what? They have 4 bloody stomachs. Like they are designed to eat. I raise cows. I see them. They eat 8 to 10 hours a day. They are designed to eat. We are designed to move. So do that every single day. And I'm not saying kill yourself in the gym. And if you want to do that, go for it. Walking is the one movement that's been associated with longevity. Like it's all you need. It's free to go walk. You don't need equipment. You don't even need shoes. Like just go walk. So walking, eating food, deep breathing, 100 conscious deep breaths at least a day, sleeping in total darkness. And we could do a whole thing on sleep. Like I cannot stress this enough, 7 to 9 hours in total darkness. And then drinking water, half your body weight in ounces of water a day is kind of the rule of thumb. Elimination, both physically and emotionally, right? So physically 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. Emotionally, again, the analogy that I use with emotions is I want you to be a sieve for emotions, not Velcro. How many of you are still pissed about something that happened when you were 5 and you're 45? Like that has, as we've just been talking, a huge impact on your health. So finding ways to process your emotions healthily. I was told the other day, an emotion should, I'm going to should on you, last about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Again, like how many of you are still angry about something last year? That has a huge impact on your health. And then the last thing about being a human or following nature's laws is play. And that's the thing that goes first. And for whatever reason, I didn't lose that part of my brain. I went through like all of the adulting, but I never lost the play. I love playing. And so, but many people have lost that. So really it's getting people back in touch with play. Now, I also don't want people being like, okay, eat food, move my body, breathe, eliminate. It's like, it's not a checklist. This is like, if you're playing, you're most likely moving. And if you're moving, you're deep breathing. If you're deep breathing, you're gonna get thirsty. And if you're thirsty, you're gonna get hungry. And if you're hungry and thirsty, you're gonna eliminate. And then you're gonna be tired at the end of the day. It's called being a human, right? So that is sort of more of the structure, that's the scaffolding of being healthy, is doing those things on a daily basis. And then other things that you can be doing on top of that, the supplements and herbs that I said earlier, some of the foods that I mentioned, and then things that specifically raise natural killer cells, which is again part of the immune system to help with viral infections. It also, natural killer cells are really good for the gut microbiome. Things to do to raise your natural killer cells: meditation. Meditation for my patients is, I tell them I'd rather them meditate than brush their teeth. Like it's so important. It does not have to be an hour and a half a day. It can be 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So meditation raises natural killer cells. Drumming raises natural killer cells. Dancing raises natural killer cells. Singing in groups, which I know we can't do now. Singing in a chorus or a choir actually raises natural killer cells more than singing alone. But also singing to the radio.
Yeah.
And art therapy. All of those things raise natural killer cells. That helps boost your immune system. That does boost those natural killer cells. Now, everything I said outside of art therapy is free. And all you need for art therapy is pen and paper. All of this stuff is not hard. It's not complicated. It is out of normalcy for people. So if you want to be abnormal, if you want to feel better at 40 than you did at 30, you have to be abnormal. Then you have to do abnormal things. So when people are saying, oh my gosh, you're so weird, I'm like, yes, I'd rather be that than normal. I don't want to follow the norm, because the norm is not healthy. No. And I do want to be healthy. So I do abnormal things because I want to swim upstream. And yet I'm working with nature and working with the earth. We can either work with her or against her. And you're seeing what's happening when we work against her. Yeah. And I want to go with. And so, that's, again, most of that stuff is free.
I love it. You're such a breath of fresh air that way. And just you truly live it too. Like you said, you haven't lost sight of fun and just the basic things that make somebody healthy. And I think it's such an important reminder. We can go to our doctors and they'll say, are you taking your vitamin D? That's a small, and yes, it's important to support your body, but that's a small thing in the scheme of things. The bigger things are free and they're easy and they're right in front of us. We just have to do it.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
again, you're so welcome. Just pick one thing, like don't get overwhelmed. Go buy local eggs from Farmer Joe down the road. That would make a huge difference, not only to him, but to your body.
I love that so much. So where can people find you, Tanda? She has an amazing blog, you guys. One of my favorite blogs. You'll get lost on there. But tell us where we can find you.
So I've got a website, drtandacook.com. It's just Dr. Tanda, Tanda, Cook, Cook.com. And then my cookbook is called Food That Grows. You can find it on Amazon or on my website. I have a YouTube channel, again, just Dr. Tanda Cook, and I got they're called Tuesday Tips. Every Tuesday I hop on and I just talk about, it's a 3-minute section on shenanigans about health.
Amazing.
And then I also, that's where you can find me.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're so welcome, my friend. It's so good to see you.
You too.